Alright, hey there everybody, how's it going? It's Dragos, and welcome to something a little bit different. Now, I've been wanting to do more art-related stuff, and at this point, with Pokemon Generation 8 coming out in, what's the time? What's the day? Oh jeez, 13 days as of recording the voiceover. The actual video was recorded a while back. I wanted to draw my champion team for each generation, and I figured what better place to start than with the first generation, Kanto. Now, the Kanto games I didn't actually play until Fire Red and Leaf Green, because the first games I actually got was Pokemon Sapphire or Emerald. It's one of those two. And then I got the Kanto games after that. Now, of course, when it came to it, this was the point where I didn't choose Pokemon because of like competitive reasoning or anything. I just chose them because I like them. So if you're gonna complain, oh, it's not a competitive Pokemon, I personally, and I'm gonna say this as nicely as possible, don't give a damn because I love Pokemon. I don't care if they're competitively viable or not. But anyway, with these, I wanted to make them look a bit different. So I do, as you can see, have a reference image open on my phone on the right. And before anyone mentions it, yes, I know I have hairy arms. Get over it. Anyway, I have a reference image open on my right, and I'm trying to make these look unique. So the reference images were like kind of basic. Just looking at them, not really much going on with them, although it might just be how I'm remembering it. But anyway, I started, of course, with my starter Pokemon, which I chose Bulbasaur in Generation 1. I honestly, I knew Charmander's evolution line pretty well because, it's one of those things. And I decided I didn't want to start with it. I wanted to start with one of the other ones. And so I looked in, when I got the game, I was tossing up between Squirtle and Bulbasaur. And in the end, I decided, you know what, let's go Bulbasaur. He looks kind of cute. Surely he'll turn into something cool. And I was actually happily surprised when he turned into Venusaur. So, if you're wondering what I called this thing in the game, what's unfortunate is I actually lost my copy of Leaf Green. I can't remember when, but I remember I lost it. So, if I remember correctly, I think I called him Bud. Yeah, I called him Bud, that's right. And honestly, just remembering what I did for the champion team was pretty cool. As you can see, there's already a little bit of a giveaway for the other champion teams, sort of. Thankfully, the light obscures some of it, and same with angling. I'm playing around with the recording angle for the camera, so that's probably be one of the only videos that has this sort of setup. Gonna adjust it in the future. And if you're wondering what I'm using for colors, I'm using two types of markers in this video because I finally got more of one. I'm using both Copic markers and Chameleon markers. Now, both are really good and work really well together. Chameleon, even though they have their little gimmick, which sometimes it takes a little bit to get used to, like you have to wait a little bit, it's still pretty good. It works quite well. And I didn't have I have to premise this for every single one. I don't have exact colors. Okay, all my colors are not exactly what you'd expect for a Pokemon. So I'm improvising and using the closest colors humanly possible with this. And surprisingly enough, I got some which were pretty accurate, and I was happy with that. And of course, it's going to be quite interesting. So if you're wondering why I'm putting a little bit of paper underneath, that's just to stop any color bleeding. It doesn't happen as much with this particular sketchbook, but it can happen. So I'm trying to avoid that because that will ruin pages below it, and then I won't be able to use that page. So then I have to go to the next page, trying to save space, that sort of thing. But anyway, going between Copics and Chameleon markers was actually quite a good feeling. Like, it felt like they really worked together, and I was just pleasantly surprised by how well they blended in the long run. And you will see me occasionally go over and tap my phone again. That's just to make sure it stays on, so I can have the reference image up and work for the colors and coloring position, and that I don't go absolutely insane. And yeah, honestly, when it came to it, it was quite fun to just go back and draw these Pokemon, because I just remember using. I think with Bud, I used him quite a bit up until Lieutenant Surge's gym. Yeah, at first it was one of the situations where it'd be, you constantly use your starter until specific gym, and then or you use your starter the most and it becomes over leveled. And surprisingly enough, I didn't actually over level Bud. I guess I had him relatively decent leveled, but I did neglect the rest of the Pokemon in my party, so I was like, oh, maybe I should do something about that. And I ended up I did end up doing something about that. I didn't use Bud as much towards the later gyms unless absolutely necessary, because he was a bit higher level. And yeah, just actually trying to remember some other things. I think of the Pokemon I had in my team, which you'll see later on. Oh yeah, this is me experimenting with the chameleon markers, trying to get it to go from like an olive green to a brown. And you will see that I stop and do the chameleon thing, which is to put a color topper on top of a pen and then let it stand for a certain amount of time. I think I did 15 seconds for the vines, but this time, when it came to this part, I was like, I'm not going to do the blending with their gimmick. I'm going to do the blending the old school style and see how well it works. And surprisingly enough, it still worked really well. I was pleasantly surprised, and the colors were surprisingly very close to what was used for the actual artwork of it. And of course, by now you've noticed my phone is no longer sitting on my desk. That's because I needed to put my arm there, as I am predominantly right-handed, so having my phone there and putting my arm on it means anything could have happened while I was holding it, while I was coloring, and I didn't want to run that risk. So yeah, with each of these, I'm not following the exact lighting of the actual art that I was using as reference images. I'm following my own lighting. So the lighting scheme is my own, but the color scheme is obviously as close as humanly possible. And I think some of the poses are the poses are going to be similar, obviously, because, trying to draw a certain Pokemon in certain poses when you haven't really drawn Pokemon in a while is kind of stupid. And honestly, just doing this was fun. Now, you will see me go over with a Sharpie. That's just to add a thicker outline so that later on when the other ones are in, they do stand out more against each other. I think I'm just using a standard Sharpie for this. I'm just not pushing down as hard, kind of treating it lightly and going around the exterior pieces specifically. Because otherwise it'd be a lot of loss of feature, I guess is the appropriate word. And yeah, once this part's done, of course, me being me, trying to get every angle, once this part's done, we move on to the second Pokemon, and I'm going to try remember more about using that Pokemon, because last time I played Fire Red and Leaf Green was quite some years ago. What am I? I'm 22 now. I think I got it when I wasn't even 10, was I? I actually cannot remember when I got Fire Red. I got Leaf Green. That's right. I had Leaf Green. That's probably what made me choose Bud, actually, because it's like, oh, Leaf Green. There's a Venusaur on the front of this. I want to use this thing. That's probably where my thinking was at. And anyway, The second Pokemon that I had in my team was called Volts, and he was my Jolteon because I absolutely loved the look of Eevee when I finally got one in the game. I was like, oh my god, what? And I was the type of kid to have other Pokemon on my team that I wanted to evolve. And so when I was going to evolve, I think it was a Pikachu using a Thunderstone because if you didn't know, I actually don't like Pikachu. Like, sure, it's a okay Pokemon. Like, Pikachu is there, but I just don't like it. That's my opinion. I don't like it. There's other electric types which I prefer, and Jolteon was one of them because when I went to evolve that Pikachu with one of the Thunderstones that I had, I saw that Eevee was able to evolve with the Thunderstone, and I'm just like, wait, what? So younger me was just like, oh, I'm gonna do this and see what it turns into. My little Eevee is gonna be awesome. Lo and behold, I was right because it evolved into a electric fox, and I was just like, oh my god, this is epic. And I think I try to remember which gyms I used him in the most. I actually don't think I used him as much in the gyms. Volts was mainly, I think I used Volts mainly in the Elite Four. I used him in a couple gyms, but the most of his use I got in the Elite Four because, surprisingly enough, he was one of the quickest Pokemon I had. But he also had some real like strong attacks, which I was just like, oh, this is awesome! Like, great, get some hits out, bam, bam, get the good hits out. He's quicker, and I had plenty of healing items too. And the funny thing was, I didn't know till later on that Eevee also evolved into Vaporeon and Flareon. And if you didn't know, Eevee is one of my most favorite Pokemon. Like, minus the evolutions, I absolutely adore Eevee. I love that Pokemon so much. But yeah, when it came to Volts, my Jolteon, he was a Pokemon that I really loved using, and honestly was a lot of fun to just redraw Jolteon. The funny thing is, I can get faces on other Pokemon right, but when it came to the evolution of Jolteon, I seem to mess it up a little bit. Like, I tried relatively get it close, but I didn't get it exactly 100%. But hey, things happen. And of course, to make him look cool, I have got electric sparks flying around him because that was the only thing I could think of at the time when I was drawing. And I'm still happy it works because it actually looks good. The funniest thing is, I'm pretty sure he and one other Pokemon, which is the Jolteon, and one other Pokemon, which we'll see later on, has the most simple color scheme because it's pretty much just two colors, or three technically if we include the purple of the eyes. But yeah, the funny thing is, every generation where there was a new evolution and you could catch an Eevee, I was just like, yep, I know what I'm doing. Because I absolutely, as I said before, I love Eevee. It is a cool Pokemon, has cool evolutions. And the funny thing is, Jolteon is in my top 3 evolutions because I absolutely adore it. And I just have good memories of using Volts on my team. It's actually fun just going down this memory lane. And it is going to be a bit of a spiel because this is a long video, and I kind of have to talk about each of these Pokemon as they come up. And of course, you will see jump cuts where suddenly all the art supplies will be back into the containers. That's just because I moved them back after I'd finished coloring that certain piece, because I don't want to show you guys that. That'd be boring. Showing the selection is fun, because then you're like, oh, he's using this and this. Showing the putting away, less fun. But yeah, gosh, just looking at this art coming together already, it's quite cool because, the way I'm layering things and having the thicker outlines to separate them and make them stand out more, it works really well to, differentiate them. Now on to the third Pokemon for my champion team of Kanto. I believe I either called him King or Arthur, because it was a Nidoking, if you couldn't put 2 and 2 together. And you can kind of see me using the reference image on my phone down there to try to figure out proportions. Um, what do I remember about him? What do I remember about this Pokemon? Oh yeah, and if you are wondering, pretty much all the Pokemon on my team were males. Not like by choice, just because I just happened to catch a lot of male Pokemon. um, I will preface if it is a male or female Pokemon that I remember using. But anyway, so with this one, I'm pretty sure I caught him as a Nidoran really early on, but I didn't know he evolved with a Moonstone until after Mount Moon. No, it was well after Mount Moon. I think it was even after Lieutenant Surge's gym. Oh gosh, when did I realize I could use a Moonstone to evolve him? God, younger me is kind of forgetful sometimes. But yeah, he was a it was a Pokemon which even before it became a Nidoking, I kind of used a fair bit. Like he was the second most used Pokemon in my Kanto champion team because he had a good coverage of types. Even though it was poison ground, he had fighting type moves, some normal type moves, which were actually surprisingly useful in some situations. It was just like a general all round tank of a Pokemon, and I loved that because, having a Pokemon that can tank all these hits and just absolutely demolish when it comes to returning the hits was great. I did remember to look up what moves it could learn when I was redrawing this. I looked specifically for Fire Red Leaf Green era stuff. It turns out it could learn Fire Punch. And I don't think younger me put that on him, but I thought, for the sake of actually having a badass pose on this Nidoking, let's have him do a Fire Punch. The funny thing is, he was actually one of the quicker ones to color and outline because, some of the shapes, while being a little bit pointy, were pretty straightforward, and the whole structure of his body was generally just easy to, I guess, draw. I'm trying to think of interesting ways to describe this, and I'm coming up with nothing. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think when it came to this Pokemon, one of the gyms I remember using him in was, where was it? Sabrina's gym. Yes. So the funny thing is, he was one of my second strongest Pokemon, and I hadn't 100% figured out that poison kind of sucks against psychic back then. And so I was like, oh, okay, we'll send in this guy. And then I was like, wait, why is he getting so much damage? And then I realized, poison and psychic don't really mix. So it actually ended up being that I had to rely on some of his other moves, which is when I think I realized, oh yeah, I have a bug type move. It took me so long to realize he had a bug type move. I think it was Pin Missile? I can't remember which one it was, but it took me a few turns of him almost fainting to realize he had a bug move, and I was just like, come on. Like, looking back at it now, I'm just like, come on, younger me, what are you doing? But yeah, it was actually a lot of fun just to remember that back in the day, I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now with Pokemon, because now I call myself a living Pokedex for good reason. I like Pokemon so much that I actually really heavily looked into it, and as you can see here, I'm adding a little bit of orange around the outside to make things a little bit interesting. Oh my, what's happening here? Okay, weird. I just realized some part which I'm going to need to edit again. Yay! Anyway, you won't see the part that I needed to edit again. We're on to the next Pokemon. So yeah, that was really weird. And the next Pokemon I used was actually a Dugong. I was one of the latest Pokemon, like, in terms of where I caught it. Because I caught the Seal, and I was like, this thing is adorable. I want it on my team. Again, this is younger me. I didn't give a damn about type matchups. But yeah, I didn't really realize how useful it would be. And when I caught it, I was just like, oh, cool, yeah, I got this Pokemon now. I'm putting it on my team, put it on my team, get to the 8th gym, and I was just like, oh, he's using fire types. Didn't I catch a water type recently? Sent it out and absolutely demolished Blaine's team. And I was actually kind of happy about that, you know, because it's like you catch this new Pokemon, then bam, instantly useful. And because of how useful it was, I kept it on my team, and I was just like, I like this little dude. He's kind of derpy, and I love the little derpy look. And then it got to the point where he evolved, and I was like, oh, he's a badass seal now. And so I actually used him specifically for the Lance fight. Because with Lance, it was kind of a thing of, oh, he's using Dragon type. Do I have anything that can do a decent bit of damage? Then I remembered, oh, I have a water ice type. This is the point where I started to click, you know, type advantage and matchup was a thing. And so I used him. I'm trying to remember his name. I think I called him Bark. Like Barq or K. Just because I just thought of, like, what does a seal sound like? I will preface, younger me was not good with naming of Pokemon. I will tell you that now. Gosh, I just like remembering some of the more stupid names that I had. Oh god, wow. Yeah, but anyway, I just loved using this one because it started derpy and kind of adorable, and then became a literal seal. And I know a lot of people. Well, he's dugong. Semantics. But I know a lot of people are just like, oh, it's a lazy design. I don't care. It's a cool design. It's a useful Pokemon. I do not care at all. But yeah, honestly, just going back and remembering how much I use specific Pokemon, it's kind of cool. And I'm just hoping I didn't mess up this edit coming up ahead. At least I know which one I did mess up to re-edit. I'm actually surprised I went under... Wait, I was editing this at 2 in the morning. No wonder it went under the radar. Oh, gosh. Anyway, so with this one, I decided to draw him using Ice Beam, because that was the move I just spammed with him. This was the one time where I actually showed me putting the stuff away, because I was like, oh, well, it was a quick one to draw. I can easily move on to the line work once I just quickly put the stuff away. But yeah, I remember using Ice Beam the most with Bark, and as such, that's what I just drew him with, because, you know, when you got an Ice type move, which this guy's really good at using, and you spam that palm, like, the most, it's a good tactic. No, it isn't. I'm just kidding. But anyway, on to the 5th Pokemon on my team, and that is another Pokemon which shares a type with another Pokemon on my team. Wow, I really did not think back in the day. Anyway, the 5th Pokemon on my team, I can't remember the name. I either called him Bones or Club. One of the two. And it is a Marowak. One of the Pokemon that I actually quite like a lot. And when I first caught a Cubone, I was like, oh, it's so cool. Like, it's got a skull on its head. Not reading the Pokédex entry, because, you know, younger me didn't think about that. But I do know what the Pokédex entry is now, so, yeah, younger me did not think about that in its life. But when I caught Cubone, it was at the same time where I think Arthur was in the stage of Nidorino. So I didn't really think about type matchups or anything of that sort. I just caught it because A, it looked cute. B, I didn't know it evolved into something which was actually kind of a little badass. And so the funny thing is, just going back and actually redrawing this guy, I realized, like, surprisingly, most of the colors I had were pretty close to what the actual colors are. And, you know, I was happy with that because I was just like, oh, yo, makes this infinitely easier to color. Now, again, it's not a 100% match, but, you know, it's still useful. I'm pretty sure that he was one of the other Pokemon that I used the most in Lieutenant Surge's gym. can't remember when I caught him, but I'm pretty sure I caught him before I challenged Surge's gym. At least I should have. My gosh, I'm actually forgetting when I caught him, but I do remember using him quite a bit. I do remember I was an idiot with him one time and sent him out against the grass type gym leader, because why not? It was not a good idea. Like 10 out of 10, would not recommend doing again. Yeah, bad idea on my part, but still, I remember fondly using him in quite a few gyms, and it was just a lot of fun back in the day. Just like, still is, but I think I had more fun back then than I did now. And then, me being me, going for the Pokemon that I like the most, ended up putting another ground type on my team. I think I called him the Dawn. Yeah, the Dawn. In case you can pick up on that, it's a Rhydon that I used. I remember catching it in the Safari Zone. Wait, is it Rhyhorn? I'm always forgetting my stuff. Let's see. Bam. Yeah, it's Rhydon. I did have that right. But yeah, I remember catching him in the Safari Zone as a Rhyhorn, and I was like, oh, this thing looks kind of cool. Like, it's made of stone, and surely it's like got a badass evolution. It does. And I actually kept it on my team ever since the Safari Zone, not realizing that now 3 of my Pokemon were weak to water-type moves. That made the first member of the Elite Four kind of a challenge. But yeah, it was honestly just, back then it was, oh, this one looks cool, I'ma use it. Whereas now it's like, oh, cool, I've already got this type. I like this one, but I've already got this type in a Pokemon that I like more. Do I risk having another one to potentially get my butt handed to me? Or do I just, put it in the box and wait for a better Pokemon to come along? It's kind of come to that point, and you'll see that later on with some of the teams, the different type coverage. But anyway, the Dawn, as I called him, was actually quite a fun Pokemon because I ran... Let's see. I remember using him in Koga's gym because I decided, hey, Safari Zone, they say you can catch Pokemon in there. Let's do that before we challenge the gym leader. Honestly, a good idea on my part, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, no, he was mainly a physical Pokemon now that I remember about it. And I did actually draw him using Hyper Beam, I believe, because I think I used that move quite a bit. Now, I do know that is a bad idea now, because that move has a 1-turn recharge, and in a certain situation, that could really bugger you over. At that point, I was just like, spam the move. And then I learned that I had a 1-turn delay, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't spam the move. At first, it was Hyper Beam quite a bit. Eventually, I taught him some fighting type moves, and a couple... I did teach him a fighting type move, yeah, I can't remember which one though. But yeah, I branched out what types of moves he used quite a bit, because I realized that if I didn't, he's not going to be that useful, and I wanted the Dawn to stay on my team. Again, younger me was not good with the naming of certain Pokemon. But yeah, he was always the 6th slot in my team, not because I preferred other Pokemon, but also because he was like the last line of defense tank, and I knew, oh, if I send him out, he can tank a few hits, he can dish out a few hits, and I can get some of my Pokemon back to life with a revive. And yeah, it was really cool to actually just go back, draw all 6 of these Pokemon that I remember actually way better than I thought I would. I'm not going to lie, starting this I thought, do I actually remember most of these, or am I going to be a dummy and forget most of them? Turns out I remembered most of them. I do actually have the rest of them written down in that notebook that you saw at the start of the video, but I'm going to try to get these up So it'll be this one up today, and then Monday for me, there will be the Johto team. And then a couple days after that, there'll be Hoenn, then Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola. I'm gonna try like space them out to the point where they'll all be up before November 15th, because that's when Sword and Shield is out, and I am looking forward to that so much. Like, I understand that some things aren't the greatest. Also, you'll see me walk away at this point to go find something. I'd lost when my like more better gold Sharpie was, and I was just like, where is it, and I actually do spend a little bit of time away from the camera trying to find it, come back and I'm just like, bugger it, this is the only one that I could find. But anyway, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane with me, and this is my Kanto champion team.